Welcome to SEEK Bytes, the podcast by engineers for engineers. Today we're joined with Alex and Leon from our previous episode, continuing our discussion on the ins and outs of technical product management. We discuss advice for engineers on how to influence the technical roadmap, better align ourselves with the product goals, and what it looks like to transition as an engineer to a technical product management role. I just wanted to touch on one of the points that you made, the last point that you made before earlier around gold plating. I don't think you used the term gold plating, but you talked about how eager engineers are to make the most optimal, most efficient, best version of the product that they possibly can. I just wanted to say for the audience, for engineers that are listening, that's probably one of the, I don't know, if I could have a top 3 list of behaviors or things that engineers could do to excel and rapidly progress in their career, that would be one of the things that I would highlight is the sooner that you can align your processes of working, your way of thinking about what you should be working on a day-to-day business, day-to-day through your day-to-day role, if you can align that with what the business needs in terms of value, that's the thing that your managers and your supervisors will recognize the most, is the ability to trade off or recognize that the work that you're doing is maybe not the most valuable and min-maxing or optimizing your effort every day to be adding the most amount of value back to the business. Whether you're working on an internal dev team or whether you're working on the UI, like every single role that an engineer is in, I feel like that's definitely one of my top 3 things for like just how to be a better engineer.
I think just wanted to add to one of the points that Alex mentioned, that you're so excited, you're building this particular product and platform product, and one team or one engineer uses it. Traditionally, it's actually quite difficult, and product managers are not great at it, at removing things that aren't working. Actually being able to measure the impact of the products that are in market, be it consumer side or engineering side, understanding how are they being used, are they being effective, are they driving the actual outcome that you sought to drive initially, and reflecting on that and not being precious about saying, you know what, it's actually not working and not doing the desired effect, we're going to remove this. Because actually removing products, removing capabilities is as good as building something, because it actually simplifies the experience, the overall experience, and creates less technical debt, creates less complexity and more simplicity for your users.
Do you have some examples of projects, maybe in recent history or even just throughout your careers, where you experienced that? The product wasn't fit for purpose and people were hesitant to shut it down. I'm trying to think of what things might people live with that aren't as effective as they could be, but they don't want to let them go. I imagine reasons might be, I built it, I'm the only one who knows it, I don't want to let go of it, that attachment feeling, but I'm sure there's other drivers for why people don't want to let go of these systems.
I think from one example I can call on at a previous organisation, we were using one set of observability tooling, which was at the time really fit for purpose, but just didn't have some of the more advanced observability capabilities that we would have hoped for as an organisation. Convincing engineers who had poured a lot of time into creating their dashboards, their alerting, just the right setup, configuring everything to the nth degree, convincing them to move away from that to an entirely new observability platform wasn't perfect. Now, I will say observability platforms in general, certainly the ones that are out there in the market as kind of PaaS options or platforms as a service offerings, are generally pretty good at taking what you've already got and ingesting that and helping you get moving pretty quickly. But it doesn't take away from, to your point, the love for, the ownership of what you've already built. And it was definitely a journey to not only convince some of the engineers to move away from what they love dearly, but also just to sort of help them understand or perhaps realize the gains they get from that more advanced observability offering. Things like spanning your calls to understand the end-to-end user journey, for example, some of the things I could think of there. It's something I think you have to be appreciative of, certainly in the technical product management space. Like engineers put a lot of effort into building what they build, and for anyone who's ever built anything, be it something at the code level or a kitchen table, you certainly have a lot of respect for it and hate to see it go. But to Leon's point, it's something I think you have to get comfortable with. Certainly in the engineering space, the products we build today probably aren't the products that are going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a very different customer, right? We had a guest on recently who in security, who's got customers in all parts of the business. The marketing teams, but the engineers as well. And they said that the engineers are a different beast to tackle to make them engage in security practices. Do you find working with engineers as a customer challenging, or are there challenges with them?
Having worked on both the consumer side and now on the engineering side, engineers are actually really good customers to work with. They are very verbal. They know what they want, and they're not afraid to tell you. Usually when you go out and speak to customers, to consumers, they may talk about certain things and be wishy-washy about how kind of like the outcomes they want to drive, and say they want one thing, but actually what they want or what they need is something totally different. What I found, and I can only leverage the experience that I've had, we've interviewed 25 engineers over the last month. It's a lot of people to speak to. They don't get spoken to enough, so they love the ability to actually voice their opinions. They're very good at articulating their opinions and what works and what doesn't work. They'll be very clear about what doesn't work. But they've also got really good fundamental understanding of the products they work on, the platforms they work on, and what are the key opportunities they see that need to be solved that we can then take and look to understand how we can actually go and solve them. So I think I've actually found working with engineers is quite refreshing because you get really honest feedback.
Yeah, we're just like in our rooms thinking to ourselves like, God, I hate this, just keeping it to ourselves. So when someone's like, oh, what do you think? You just let loose. You're just like, I know exactly what I need. And I wish we had this.
Well, we did the interview. I interviewed you, Will.
No, I remember. It was cool to being asked those questions because it's definitely nothing I'd thought of before. Like how well are we doing in this? Is this working well? And knowing that there was, I guess a platform team to help make those changes, it was refreshing. It's nice to know, actually.
I think one of the only challenges I face, if I could call it that, when I am working with engineers is they are really good at solving problems, right? So before you talk to engineers, they're often not expressing some of the concerns they have around, hey, wouldn't it be great if a platform could do this for me? Because they're saying, look, no one else is going to, I've got the solution. I can implement this. I can do it myself. And that's amazing. I mean, there's just so much capability there in the individuals within certainly engineering at SEEK. But I think, I'm probably opening a can of worms here. Like they can hold us more accountable as a platform team to do more for them, or certainly to raise the concerns that they have to see where we can, provide greater leverage.
That's a great opportunity to segue, into a question I had, which was just for senior engineers, staff engineers. Other than, you talked about surveys that you run, but other than those, or maybe involving those as well, how can senior or higher level engineers actually help shape the roadmap more effectively? Because you talked about like we kind of know what we don't like and we have the skills to solve it, so we tend to solve it. But you mentioned we could leverage the platform teams better. How might we do that?
Yeah, I think the first part is and we hope through some of the surveys, etc., we've been running to make this a lot easier, but to be vocal about the things you think can be improved. I think there's certainly that little bit of internalization again, the solving the problem for yourself because you can. It's okay to be a demanding customer, right? To ask for things to be improved via existing support channels or contacting people like Leon and myself if you've got ideas that can help you. Certainly always open to that sort of feedback.
First and foremost, be involved in business decisions. So understand, be a fly on the wall, come and speak to your product manager in whichever company you work for and say, can I just join in on your product discussions and understand the business objectives, understand your team objectives, understand the key metrics you're trying to drive. Okay. And then because you have that understanding, you could then try and connect what the engineer is trying to do with what the business is trying to achieve. So that's the first part, is actually really understanding the business objectives. The second part is actually around effective communication. Effective communication with different stakeholders is really, really important. So understanding what resonates with a particular stakeholder is really critical in a product role. So if I'm speaking to a director of product versus a business analyst versus a junior QA about the same topic, I will address that differently depending on who I'm speaking to, and understand what are their key needs, what are their key opportunities, what are the key problems that they're interested in, what is most important to these people, and trying to tailor my communication based on what they're after. And I think that's something engineers can really improve or try and address in order to be more effective in driving outcomes in the product space.
yourself, Alex, you've come as an engineer, right? So how does an engineer go from someone who codes stuff to thinking about engineers as a product?
I think it definitely is key there, just to have that empathy with your customer. And yeah, I was going to mention, having come from that sort of engineering background, don't quote me on that too heavily, I'm not an engineer anymore, but, come from that engineering background where you start, thinking more about technical solutions for predefined problems. What I sort of got passion for as I grew my career was understanding where those sort of key problems came from. Obviously, there's usually an end user in mind there. We're trying to solve a problem that they have with a solution. And so the more you kind of lift your eyes to the horizon and start thinking less about what can I do right now and more about what is the customer thinking and feeling, how could I solve things they're not even thinking about yet, the more you're sort of progressing from engineer specifically into that sort of technical product management space, and the more customer empathy you have, I think the more value you can drive. And certainly some of the best technical product managers I know come from more of an engineering background than anywhere else, at least certainly within the platform product space.
The only thing I'd add to that is lean into some of the skills, transferable skills that engineers have. I think one of the things that either Alex or Will, you mentioned before, is engineers are really good at breaking down problems. Product managers break down problems all the time, and really leading into that, but just reframing your approach to, you're not just solving a particular developer problem, but actually a more of a platform product problem that you're trying to solve. And so really leveraging that. And as I said before, communication is really, really important. That's something you have to upskill in. For me, communication is one of the most critical parts of product management, and then understanding the business priorities, because being able to connect what you're trying to do with the business objectives and then effectively communicate that is really critical.
Nice. So it sounds very much like engineering. You can come from an academic background, from a practice background. You can come from an technical background, non-technical background. One thing I'm curious about for anyone who's listening, who's interested in maybe changing, career change up, since you've come from an engineering background, is it something where you transition and you start out at just as a product manager, or is it possible if you're a lead engineer, staff engineer, if you've been in the industry for 15, 20 years, can you transition straight into a senior technical product manager role? Like, how transferable are the skills that you would need to kind of transition sideways rather than going down and then back up again?
It's definitely something that I would see at the moment as quite non-linear, right? Like you don't say I want to be a technical product manager or that's my career path. So I'm going to start at the junior level. I'll then work up to the senior level. I think every organization has a different approach to, a different maturity in the way they approach. We'll stick with like just technical product management or sort of platform as a product here. And so that can definitely change up what they might look for in terms of the skills and capabilities they'd expect from a technical product manager, be it senior, junior, director of, within their space. And I think like any role, what you're sort of best to look at is what are the sort of skills and capabilities that would be expected when you're out there in the market from a technical product management perspective, and then how can I map that back to the skills and capabilities that I have today, and specifically in examples where I've been able to prove those sort of capabilities exist within me. So saying I think I'm a great communicator and I have what it takes to be a TPM is one thing. Being able to say I think I'm a great communicator, and like here are some examples of where I've taken a really complex technical problem and wrapped that up nicely to a senior business role, in order to present something that's deeply technical in a way that is meaningful from a business perspective. So I think it's more about if you're out there looking for next steps as a technical product manager, maybe starting in the engineering space, have a look on SEEK, check out what jobs are available, see what sort of skills or capabilities they're looking for, and try and map that back to what you have. And certainly Leon touched on this idea of a technical product manager capability matrix. That's something we use internally to assess, certainly within the technical product management space at SEEK, whether you're suitable sort of from junior to senior.
Is there such thing as a technical product analyst or technical product engineer? I would assume no, it would just be a BA or someone working in a platform team, but I don't know.
Yeah, so certainly BA is the role I would think of that's most akin there, and even the role of a BA is a good sort of segue into technical product management. You've got some technical capability, you're using a bit of that understanding to translate requirements into something, or sort of bridge that gap between business and technical. And so if you elevate your skills in that space, I think you can definitely step into a TPM role.
Has this been a good combo as well? I mean, you've come from the product space, you've come from the tech space. Did both of those harmonize, or do you guys clash sometimes? You're like, no, this is a product concern.
It is the best dance I've ever done. Well, I find myself incredibly lucky to have people like Alex in my team. I've also got a guy by the name of Den in my team who, as I was talking about that unicorn at the start of the podcast, the unicorn of someone that's got technical proficiency and product mindset. These guys have it in spades, and I'm very fortunate to have that kind of support around me because, like I said before, my technical understanding is limited, but I've got good product experience. And so being able to marry that product experience with the technical understanding and then have that relationship where we bounce ideas off each other and challenge each other in ways that constantly we're trying to improve our thinking, our understanding, and ensure that we're solving problems in the most beneficial way for our end users is really, really effective. And having that relationship has been paramount to us succeeding as a platform team.
Couldn't agree more. Definitely very mutually beneficial, and lots to learn from both sides. And anyone out there building a team, like try and get a mix.
What's your advice for businesses or teams, or even individual engineers in teams who don't have platform teams, trying to get buy-in from the business?
Getting buy-in, that's a big challenge, I think, at any organization. I mean, to set the scene, what you're trying to do, right, is take a portion of your engineering within an organization, internalize that, and basically stop generating revenue for a while. So, the obvious translation, I guess, is like we would hope to save cost or optimize in many different ways, which is what you aim towards. But it's not something that you're going to necessarily do within the first few months or even year of starting to build out that team. There's often an upfront investment in brand new tooling and team establishment and developer engagement and other things to get your platform off the ground. So I certainly won't say it's an easy task. And I think we're very lucky here at an organization like SEEK that we have the right backing from both the business and the technology side of SEEK to work towards that. And we're making some great strides there. What you have to kind of look at in any organization, first of all, is the size of your organization. I mean, in some cases, if you're a small sort of startup, it probably isn't something you need straight away. But as your organization grows, where you start to see development teams spending more and more time on those sort of technically complex problems to solve that don't actually create customer value, that's when you probably start seeing an opportunity to say, look, if every single product experience team within our organization is having to solve for the same vulnerabilities each quarter as new updates come out, and they're all taking time to do that, maybe centralizing that into a team that owns that on behalf of all the others means that if we have one person thinking about that problem and solving it in a way others can consume, then all the other people in those other teams can now focus back on that experience they were aiming to build in the first place. There's a right time and place as an organization grows to kind of start down that platform product journey, and it's going to be different for every organization, I think.
One thing I might add, when we were doing the TPM capability matrix, one of the things that kind of comes naturally in the normal product space is you celebrate the successes of your product. Once you release, you have showcases and so forth. And so your product has pretty good visibility. One thing that I've added to the TPM capability matrix that I think is unique to the TPM space is to be a platform evangelist. The more people that use your platform, the more efficient they become, the more productivity the business has, the less issues that the teams can possibly uncover and encounter. And so being an evangelist, someone that promotes the platform across the organization is really, really important. And the way you do that is, go and speak at town halls, go and speak at showcases, be really clear on the impact your platform is going to drive. So we talked about metrics before. Really be clear on those metrics and constantly communicate those metrics and the impact they're having on the business and how it's linking to the overarching business objectives and business strategies. The more you do that, one thing that I've always talked about is like, I'd rather over communicate than under communicate. If people don't want to hear you, they'll just, they won't read the email or they won't come to the showcase, but that's fine. Like, you just want to make sure that the platform is as well known across the organization. So it's getting all the usage and all the benefit that the platform is actually trying to drive. And through that, you actually then started to get your senior stakeholders to be more, okay, I can see what you're trying to do here. Yep, maybe that's actually a good idea that we continue to fund that and we continue to evolve the platform practice.
Yeah, you made me think, it was mentioned that engineers really they're good at solving problems. Sometimes they just want to solve it. They know how to do it, I can do it, they'll solve it. And they'll make a tool that might fit in the platform space. We have internal tools that, help review vulnerabilities and PR requests and how many things have happened day to day. And it's just kind of like a digest and stuff like that. Look, would tools like that or other tools that people have made flow into the platform space eventually?
Look, absolutely. I don't think it's a case that every tool that every development team has is suitable for a sort of platform-wide adoption. But as part of a sort of platform product approach at any organization, you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel if something out there works and you're seeing great adoption already. I think the better opportunity there, similar to the way any organization approaches kind of expanding what their end customer solutions are, is, do you build, do you buy, do you acquire, right? So one very valid option is, hey, we see a tool that's getting great leverage across, say, half of the organization already in our engineering cohort. If we, brought that tool into a platform as a product approach, expanded or maybe just adapted its usability to open it up to even more teams, then that's a fantastic win for both the team who created that solution initially. You're getting effectively economies of scale there with what you've created. So more customers for you. There's obviously great leverage there, great benefit for the organization overall. So we always encourage as much as we can for engineers who have a good idea to kind of bring that into the team. And another aspect of that when it comes to platform thinking, certainly from that focus on technical capabilities as an offering. If you think about being able to use, let's say, Kubernetes to roll out different images or container sets. One of the things we would look to do there is to create that catalog of different deployment types that you might want to use as an engineer, be it an AI type service, a database service, etc. And again, what we would hope is that we can build some sensible defaults there as a platform team, but where other parts of the organization see value in creating a specific component or service that can be reused, that there's an opportunity for them to bring that in and make that adoptable as well.
Cool. That makes sense to me. Thank you.
We should have the opportunity. Big shout out to all our engineering platforms engineers who are building the product that our internal SEEK engineers use day to day. You're doing a great job, guys and girls.
Couldn't agree more. Only other thing is like I was saying before, the technical product space is relatively new. We're a small community, but if anyone would like to connect, share ideas, share problems, opportunities, Alex and myself, I'm more than happy to connect and grow our technical product mindset and also the technical product community more broadly in Melbourne and globally.
The whole TPM space is quite young in general, is what you're saying? Like in the industry, it's quite young as a concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. I feel like if it's young, then it'd be one of the best opportunities for extroverted people to spin up. Like we have Melb.js. Like we've got groups that gather once a month to talk about TypeScript, talk about our specialization within the industry, like security meetups, TypeScript meetups, functional programming meetups, that kind of thing. Do you have social media handles like Twitter or something like that? Do technical product managers gather on social platforms and talk about their pains?
Is there a TPM conf?
There isn't a TPM conf that I'm aware of.
Yet.
Yeah, if anyone wants to correct me on that, I'd love to hear from you. There certainly is some more emerging conference style stuff around platform as a product though. So PlatformCon is certainly a big piece there.
Nice.
And so keep an eye on that one. Maybe we can link to that in the show notes.
Definitely. Awesome. That's exactly what I was looking for. What can we link to in the show notes? Sometimes people are like, we had a security evangelist on here. Those people usually have Twitter handles they like to share, that kind of thing. All right. Thanks both of you for joining us today. It's been a really good conversation. I definitely, for one, have learned some things, and I appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be able to share our passions with the rest of the engineering organisation.
Absolutely is. Thanks.